Nolan, he's been up for writing, but he has yet to be acknowledged for his directing, his primary role. Now, I understand that, especially on movie critic sites like Rotten Tomatoes, for some reason, people hate Christopher Nolan because they see him as someone who relies on these blockbuster type of movies that, for some reason, are considered best pictures. Well, guess what? If you can do blockbusters well, see Steven Spielberg, then you can make them Oscar quality.
Right? You can't knock a movie just because they're one of the few that actually gets a fucking great budget.
I think people get upset because they want an Oscar caliber movie to be very separate from an Oscar caliber movie to be very separate from a blockbuster type of movie. So when they come together, people have difficulty separating them, and they're like, wait, no, that's a popular grand film. That's not an Academy, because that's not what I'm used to seeing.
Which is bullshit, because in theory, all blockbuster movies should be Academy movies, because if you're spending that fucking much money, you should be able to fucking get it right.
In my opinion, I think every movie should strive to be an Oscar. Obviously, that's not true. Transformers is not going for the Academy Award.
What are you talking about? That bitch Megan Fox nailed it. We're right on the way out the door. She nailed unemployment.
But Christopher Nolan, Inception was nominated for Best Picture, and for the same argument we were using with Ben Affleck and Argo, how you play the most important role in the film, which is directing, and how is it not getting acknowledged that you did a great job directing if your film is considered one of the best?
I mean, really, when you think about it now, especially, like, Spielberg is really the only director that gets any respect now.
For blockbusters.
Yeah. They worship at his throne and then forget everyone else when it comes time to hand out awards.
To be fair, making a blockbuster film, like a very, very, very popular, high-budget film, and also giving it Oscar-caliber elements is incredibly difficult to do, because what is popular is not always what's artistic. However, Christopher Nolan is one of the best people. The Dark Knight...
Wait. Where does that leave us? Because we're neither popular or artistic.
We're in the middle. We're the common folk.
So we're the ones that nobody likes.
We're the ones who talk about things other people do because we can't do them. Critics. But when it really comes down to it, The Dark Knight, Oscar caliber performance, one of the highest grossing films of that year, and probably, granted in my opinion, the best superhero comic book movie ever made. By a pretty wide margin. That's right. It's way better than Winter Soldier or fucking Avengers. Don't even talk to me
and
about that.
Not only was it a great, probably the greatest superhero film, it was also the first one to take the centralized story and go in a completely different direction.
Yeah. He has a huge strength with writing as well. He's great at theme, and he's great at writing. And Memento, he was recognized for writing, but that film was not up for Best Picture, so I can see him not getting a nomination for directing in that. However, Interstellar is a film that really pushed the boundaries of the space epic. Gravity was not really an epic, because it really kind of centralized around one setting. They're kind of floating off in space, they're trying to get back to the safety of the space station. It's a small scope. It is in space, but it's not an epic. Ever since 2001: A Space Odyssey, we have not really seen a more realistic take on space. We have plenty of cool sci-fi movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, the entire Star Wars, Star Trek. We have tons of that, but we don't have many realistic space films, which are really starting to get popular now. And Interstellar, in my opinion, did that the best. The Martian is a good movie, but I don't think it had the depth and the scope that Interstellar did.
No, especially with The Martian, it seems like, and I agree with this, that a lot of the feedback is just, it feels on the cusp of almost being a comedy.
Yeah, and the Golden Globes decided it was a comedy. But Interstellar is a 100% serious movie, and it does an amazing job at making something very physically and theoretically dense accessible to someone like me who knows nothing about the science of space travel. I don't know anything about black holes, and they did a good job at walking an average viewer through these complex themes.
On a side note, it's usually not a good sign when some kind of award group like the Golden Globes is telling you what genre the movie you just made fits into, because nobody saw that coming. Nobody had any idea there was going to be any humor. They're just sitting there, this is going to be an intense, dramatic film, and then you're sitting down giggling going, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, exactly.
Like what is he going to wipe his ass with, like, tree toilet paper now that he's going to make from, like, hermetic sand?
Yeah, but Interstellar, it blends wide scope and it blends human emotion. Like, Matthew McConaughey, granted, was a huge part of that, but he had to show how stressful it was to be away from your family, to see your daughter grow up without you. It was so intense. And Christopher Nolan was not recognized at all for a very complicated film, a film where so much of that film could have gone wrong. He could have made it too complicated to understand. He could have gotten lost in several different tangents, and he could have completely forgot to realistically portray human emotion. And he did everything perfect.
Not like we could relate to getting lost in tangents or anything.
So Interstellar, in my opinion, very underrated, unrecognized. And then The Dark Knight got recognition, but not for Christopher Nolan's directing. And again, that was a movie that took a subject matter that was never perceived as serious, dramatic. No one saw comic book films as dramatic before The Dark Knight. And he took that to a new level.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Heath Ledger's character especially does add a certain bit of comedic value to that film. With the, why so serious?
But I can make the argument that Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, although not quite as good, are very close in quality.
The Dark Knight, I don't think... The Dark Knight and the one that came after, I can't remember.
Rises.
Dark Knight Rises are great. I don't feel like Batman Begins was quite on the same level. I do think it was the beginning of the series, and it kind of set the stage. But I don't think it was on the same level.
The cinematography, the way emotion is depicted, the quality is there.
But I feel like the storyline, the writing behind that might not have been as strong as the next two films. Well, yeah,
I mean, they were more limited because they had to tell a story everyone already knew. However, so, again, I could see the argument for The Dark Knight. Inception, we talked about. How do you blow him off for Best Director when it's up for Best Picture? And the big one is Interstellar. That's where they're really showing a disregard for Nolan.
And you know what? Especially when it comes to Inception, that movie should not have been nominated for Best Picture, but it should have been nominated for Best Director because, again, another plot line that was incredibly complex and very easily could have been fucked up 100 different ways.
Nolan has done complicated subject matter 3 times. He has done Memento, he has done Interstellar, and he has done Inception. All 3 of those are so easy to just get lost. Like, what is going on in this movie? And he does a great job of explaining it, but not blatantly explaining it by being like, okay, this is how this works. He writes it well where a character has to learn it or where the dialogue has to talk about it. So if you pay attention, it's able to be followed. Not many directors can do that. That's so high level.
No, he does a great job of letting the story tell itself and putting it in the right place to develop on its own.
Absolutely. So that being said, Christopher Nolan is pretty damn underrated and unrecognized by the Academy.
So in other words, what we really need is for a changing of the guard at the Academy.
Need some young blood.
Yeah, because these fucking old-ass crypt keepers are fucking not getting it done.
Nice. In The Matrix, the person who is learning about this new world is the main character. In Inception, it is the supporting character. Neo stays focused on his sense of wonder. We experience everything new alongside him. Cobb takes the role of the teacher, and the movie takes breaks to develop his character through his past.